Picture this. It's 3 a.m. and you're wide awake. Not because you want to be, but because your bladder once again overruled your brain. By the time most men reach their late 60s, that scenario is almost inevitable. Histological studies show that 80+% of men over 70 have an enlarged prostate, or benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH. Beyond the inconvenience of midnight bathroom trips, BPH erodes sleep architecture, suppresses growth hormone pulses, and chips away at mood, focus, and metabolic health the very next day. In other words, what happens in your pelvis never stays in your pelvis. It ricochets through your entire neuroendocrine system. Traditionally, most conversations about natural prostate support have centered on saw, palmetto, yet a 2023 Cochrane review concluded that saw palmetto berries on their own provide little to no benefit for urinary symptoms or prostate volume. So if the old hero isn't living up to its legend, where should we look next? Enter a deep crimson fruit whose seeds are encased in jewel-like arils, the pomegranate. In 2023, researchers used nanovesicles isolated from pomegranate juice to treat a mouse model of BPH. The vesicles significantly reduced prostate weight and cellular proliferation markers without hormonal side effects. Parallel cellular work shows that ponicalagins, the polyphenols that give pomegranate its tart bite, dampen angiogenic signaling and oxidative stress inside overgrown prostate tissue. Even more intriguing, downstream gut microbiome metabolites such as urolithin A appear to modulate androgen receptor activity, hinting at a gut-prostate signaling axis we're only beginning to map. Why does this matter? Because lower urinary tract symptoms are more than an annoyance. They're a stressor that keeps the sympathetic nervous system humming all night. Chronically fragmented sleep accelerates insulin resistance, elevates blood pressure, and impairs emotion regulation circuits in the prefrontal cortex. A swollen prostate, in other words, can quietly age your brain. Before moving straight to the topic, I want you to watch the video completely before adopting any tool or protocol, because I do a lot of research before making a video, so it makes sense. So better understand the video and my research first, because your health matters to me a lot. Thank you. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to unpack 6 science-backed breakthroughs that connect this deceptively simple fruit to measurable improvements in prostate size, urinary flow, and systemic vitality. You'll learn the inflammatory switch inside prostatic tissue that pomegranate polyphenols appear to flip, how timing your intake with circadian androgen rhythms amplifies the effect, a synergistic breathing protocol that calms pelvic floor hypertonicity so the fruit's biochemistry can work unopposed, simple grocery store cues for identifying the highest potency arils, hint, it's not about size, microbiome tuning habits that help your gut convert pomegranate with heat therapy to reduce nocturia faster. Throughout, I'll translate peer-reviewed data into concrete protocols you can implement tonight. No hype, just neuroscience and actionable tools. Ready to reclaim uninterrupted sleep, sharper cognition, and a healthier prostate? Let's dive in. Let's begin where most prostate issues begin, at the cellular level, inside the prostate's glandular tissue. As men age, hormonal fluctuations, particularly in the balance between testosterone and dihydrotestosterone, DHT, can trigger a low-grade chronic inflammatory response. This inflammation becomes a silent architect of benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH. It activates immune cells, increases oxidative stress, and promotes the abnormal growth of prostate tissue. But here's what's fascinating. Several studies now suggest that pomegranate-delayed polyphenols, especially punicalagins, can effectively modulate this inflammatory cascade. Think of punicalagins as molecular peacekeepers. They don't just fight inflammation with blunt force like NSAIDs, but instead regulate the pathways that initiate and maintain inflammation in the first place. One of the key enzymes involved in this inflammatory process is cyclooxygenase 2, or COX-2. When COX-2 activity goes up in prostate cells, it signals for the release of prostaglandins, chemical messengers that ramp up inflammation and pain. In clinical cell studies, pomegranate extract has been shown to significantly suppress COX-2 expression, effectively turning down the inflammatory volume in prostate tissue. Another target is nuclear factor kappa B, NF-κB, a transcription factor that acts like a master switch for inflammation. And when activated, NF-κB triggers the production of cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha that drive tissue swelling, fibrosis, and cellular proliferation. Research reveals that pomegranate polyphenols can inhibit the activation of NF-κB in prostate cells, reducing both inflammatory signaling and abnormal cell growth. What's happening in your body when you drink pomegranate juice or eat the bajarals is this. Pumacologens are absorbed in the gut and within hours begin to circulate in the bloodstream. From there, they penetrate tissues, including the prostate, and begin modulating gene expression related to inflammation. This isn't about masking symptoms. It's about changing the chemical environment that makes the prostate swell in the first place. Now, you might be thinking, why not just take anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen? The answer lies in the subtlety of natural compounds. Unlike pharmaceuticals, punacalgins don't disrupt systemic pathways or stress the kidneys. Instead, they work with your body's natural healing systems to restore balance without creating dependency or side effects. One human pilot study showed that men with elevated PSA, TA marker often linked to inflammation and prostate stress, who consumed pomegranate juice daily for a year experienced a significant slowdown in PSA doubling time, suggesting a stabilizing effect on prostate health. While more large-scale research is needed, the early signs are promising. Here's a simple tool to apply. Incorporate 8 to 12 ounces of fresh pomegranate juice into your morning routine. Aim for juice with no added sugars and ideally cold pressed to preserve polyphenol content. If juice isn't an option, a handful of fresh arils or a standardized polyphenol extract capsule can serve as effective alternatives. And don't forget consistency. Like most anti-inflammatory interventions, the benefits of pomegranate compounds build over time. You're not just targeting symptoms. You're shifting the biology of your prostate one day at a time. So the next time you're weighing your options for supporting prostate health, consider this. Pomegranate doesn't just soothe symptoms, it alters the landscape of inflammation itself, helping your body return to a state of cellular calm. Now we'll explore how your hormones, specifically testosterone and DHT, fluctuate across the day, and why timing your pomegranate intake can dramatically influence its effects on the prostate. Stay with me. If you're already eating healthy and taking steps to reduce inflammation, timing might be the tool you didn't realize was missing. The human body doesn't respond to nutrients and compounds the same way at all times of day. That's because nearly every cell in your body, including those in the prostate, follows a circadian rhythm, a biological clock that governs hormonal release, cellular repair, and even immune signaling. Let's focus on two key players, testosterone and its more potent derivative, dihydrotestosterone, DHT. Both of these androgens have a direct impact on prostate tissue. As we age, testosterone levels tend to drop, while the local conversion to DHT often increases in prostate cells, contributing to enlargement and inflammation. But here's the twist. Testosterone production is highest in the early morning, peaking between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. This rhythm isn't random. It's deeply rooted in your hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, the hormonal command center of your brain and body. Why does this matter for pomegranate intake? Because pomegranate compounds don't just float aimlessly in the bloodstream. They interact with hormone receptors and signaling molecules, and their effectiveness can be enhanced or diminished depending on your hormonal environment. Consuming pomegranate early in the day, when testosterone and DHT levels are naturally elevated, appears to have greater bioactivity in tissues like the prostate, potentially helping to rebalance androgen signaling and reduce local overactivation of DHT receptors. A recent study on nutrient-hormone interactions showed that polyphenols ingested during peak androgen times led to stronger gene modulation effects in hormone-sensitive tissues. In plain terms, your body listens more carefully to certain nutrients when your hormones are awake and talking. Here's what the research suggests. Having your pomegranate, whether in juice, arils, or extract form, between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. allows it to interact more effectively with active hormonal pathways. This is when your androgen receptors are more responsive and your metabolism is primed for antioxidant delivery. And there's more. Early morning pomegranate intake also aligns with cortisol's natural peak. Now, cortisol often gets a bad reputation, but in the right dose at the right time, it plays a critical role in managing inflammation and modulating immune function. Polyphenols like punicalagins may work synergistically with this cortisol spike to calm down inflammatory activity in the prostate and surrounding tissues. Let me give you a simple morning protocol. Upon waking, hydrate with a glass of water and spend 5 to 10 minutes in natural light to reinforce circadian alignment. 30 to 60 minutes later, consume your pomegranate dose, either 8 to 12 ounces of juice, a small bowl of fresh arils, or a standardized extract capsule, 250 to 500 milligrams of polyphenols. Pair with protein or healthy fat to slow digestion slightly and support better absorption of polyphenols. Here's a tip if you're drinking juice. Swirl it slowly in your mouth for a few seconds before swallowing. Why? Because some polyphenols begin absorbing in the oral mucosa before even reaching your gut. And now, a gentle reminder. If these insights are helping you think differently about your health, I invite you to subscribe. We dive deep into neuroscience-backed tools every week, all designed to help you live longer and feel better without guesswork. Back to timing. One additional benefit of morning consumption is what it prevents. Taking pomegranate too late in the evening may interfere with melatonin signaling in some sensitive individuals. While rare, the antioxidants can slightly increase alertness in those with an already elevated stress profile. Morning timing avoids that risk and leverages your body's natural hormonal intelligence. So instead of thinking of nutrition as a what-only question, begin asking when. When you feed your biology matters almost as much as what you feed it. The right compound at the wrong time may do little. The right compound at the right time can transform everything. Next, we'll explore something that's often overlooked but deeply impactful: how chronic pelvic floor tension can silently worsen prostate symptoms, and how one simple breathwork technique can work hand in hand with pomegranate to reverse that. Let's keep going. If you've ever struggled with slow or hesitant urination, frequent urges at night, or that nagging sense of incomplete emptying, there's a strong chance it's not just your prostate. There's a hidden player involved that very few people talk about: the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor is a network of muscles that supports the bladder, prostate, rectum, and in men, even helps regulate erectile function and ejaculatory control. When it's working properly, it contracts and relaxes in harmony with your nervous system. But when it's overly tense, often due to chronic stress, poor posture, or years of sitting, it becomes a bottleneck. Even if your prostate begins to shrink from anti-inflammatory support like pomegranate, a hypertonic pelvic floor can still restrict urinary flow, cause discomfort, and keep the bladder from fully relaxing. Here's what's happening neurologically. Chronic stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight circuit. This doesn't just increase heart rate or spike cortisol, it also sends signals to the pelvic floor muscles to remain partially contracted. The problem is, most men don't realize this tension is happening until symptoms emerge. Over time, this sympathetic overdrive turns into a loop. Urinary difficulty increases stress, and stress maintains muscle tightness, which worsens symptoms. But the good news is that this loop can be broken through breath work. Deep diaphragmatic breathing is one of the fastest and most reliable ways to shift from sympathetic activation into parasympathetic recovery. When done properly, it communicates to your nervous system that you are safe, restoring tone to the vagus nerve and encouraging relaxation of internal muscles, including the pelvic floor. A simple tool to apply is the 4-7-8 breath. Here's how to do it. Sit or lie comfortably with one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds, expanding your belly. Hold that breath for 7 seconds. This is key for vagal activation. Exhale gently and completely through your mouth for 8 seconds. Repeat this cycle 4 to 6 times, ideally twice per day. When practiced consistently, especially in the evening, this breathwork routine not only reduces pelvic floor tension, but also enhances the parasympathetic conditions under which your prostate can heal. Think of it like preparing the soil before planting a seed. Pomegranate supplies the biochemical nutrients. Breathwork clears the space for them to take root. In fact, new integrative approaches to men's health are starting to pair antioxidant therapies with neuromuscular training, showing that physical relaxation can significantly amplify the effect of natural compounds on urinary function and inflammation markers. One clinical model revealed that men who incorporated structured breathing and relaxation protocols alongside polyphenol supplementation saw greater reductions in nocturia and urgency than those using nutrition alone. So here's a simple protocol. Morning, take your pomegranate intake as discussed earlier. Evening, practice 4-7-8 breathing for 5 to 10 minutes while lying on your back, knees bent to reduce lower back strain. Optional add-on, place a warm compress on your lower abdomen or perineum during the breathwork session. The heat further relaxes pelvic musculature and improves blood flow. Have you noticed how stress can show up as tension in the jaw, neck, or shoulders? The same thing happens deeper in your body, but it's harder to detect. This technique helps you connect with and consciously release tension where it matters most for prostate health. Now we'll move from the internal to the external. How to identify the most potent polyphenol-rich pomegranates in your local grocery store. Because not all fruit delivers the same healing power, let's make sure you're choosing the best. Not all pomegranates are created equal. And if you're relying on this fruit to support your prostate health, it's critical to understand how to choose the varieties with the highest concentration of the compounds that matter, namely punicalagins, anthocyanins, and ellagic acid. We tend to think that if a fruit looks fresh or large, it must be good. But when it comes to pomegranates, what truly matters is the internal chemistry, and that chemistry is often reflected in subtle external cues. Let's start with color. A deeper, darker red skin is generally associated with higher antioxidant content. Why? Because the pigments responsible for that bold red hue, particularly anthocyanins, are also powerful antioxidants. These same compounds have been shown to contribute to reductions in oxidative stress within prostate tissue, supporting cellular resilience and reducing inflammation. So here's your first rule. Go for deep red, slightly rough-skinned pomegranates. They tend to be more mature and richer in polyphenols. Next is weight. A heavier pomegranate is often a juicier one, and that means more arils per fruit and less rind. Since the juice is where punicalagins are most concentrated, a denser fruit typically delivers more of the anti-inflammatory compounds you're looking for. So the second rule, choose fruit that feels